Hello, welcome to RCR Wireless News Futurecom 2016 coverage. Claro and Ericsson did a 5G trial during the trade show. Was that?
Well, we set up an agreement with Ericsson last year in order to deploy a 5G demo in this year in the Futurecom. We managed that together. We managed on deploy this on 15 gigahertz and bandwidth and with Anatel regulation in Brazil. This bandwidth in Brazil, they are used to use microwave for a corporate segment in telecom. So we did a demo with low power, but a very close system, RF system here in the Futurecom. So we achieved it with 15 gigahertz bandwidth and 4 carriers at 100 megahertz each. So we did a carrier aggregation of those four carriers of 100 megahertz up and plus 4 for down. So we had 800 megahertz as a bandwidth in total. So with this we achieved to reach a peak traffic of 5 gigabits per second. And as a peak, and as an average around 4.5, 4.6 gigabits per second. That was amazing compared with the other technologies that you have in Brazil right now. And so it was very interesting because we managed to move several movies of 4K as in the R interface, and we have demonstrated this here. And also we get into the agenda of our regulator to discuss the frequency that we're going to deploy 5G in Brazil. As you probably know, we have defined in the market frequency band for US and for Europe, but we didn't manage to discuss this in Brazil yet. So it's important to understand which frequency we're going to deploy this, because it's important to, when it comes to device, when it comes to consumer, we need to understand the scalability of those products, right?
And what kind of application is Claro thinking about using 5G? I know we still have years to come, but based on this trial right now, what Claro thinks about it?
Well, it's not clear yet. We have seen some discussions in the market that the first release in 5G will come with fixed wireless in order to for residential and enterprise segment, but also could be used for gaming, also could be used for cloud computing, and also can be used for other segments as IoT not in general, but IoT that demands low latency, high throughputs, high data bit rates. So I think that in 5G for Brazil, that we are thinking that we're going to be around
2022 or 2022.
In 4 or 5 years, going to be like that. So in 4 or 5 years, I believe that the whole ecosystem for IoT, for gaming, for virtual reality, and the other fun stuff that are going to be in gadgets, etc., will drive the 5G on the right way.
And you said about 2020, 2021, but until then, what is Claro doing to attend all demand for data traffic? I mean, are you involving 4G to other technologies?
We are deploying 4G in the major cities. Right now, Claro has coverage in cities that has above 200 million inhabitants. And the idea is to not only with just one frequency band and 2.5 gigahertz, but we also are deploying in 1.8, doing refarming, that is the GSM bandwidth for Brazil. And also with the 700 that we are deploying national in Brazil, we're going to do carrier aggregation, we're going to deploy MIMO. So As soon as we have cities with 3 frequency bands with carrier aggregation and MIMO, we are able to achieve throughputs around 600 megabits per second. So that's the way that Claro is think of the evolution of 4G right now.
And back into the 5G, did you have the chance to discuss about which could be the ideal frequency band for Brazil, or it's too soon yet?
I mean, our regulator, we didn't manage to get this into the agenda already. But as I mentioned previously, I think that is usually we take the first step of Europe or USA. So gonna be the frequencies that they are looking into deploy the first phase of 5G. But also Brazil has opportunity to deliver to get the frequencies band like 3.5 gigahertz that are available in Brazil in some places. So it's its own development. I understood from the 3GPP side. But for Brazil, we are pushing to get more frequency bands in low bandwidth, like 7 gigahertz, 8 gigahertz, 3.5, as I mentioned.
To get but it's still to be.
Yes, to do the carrier aggregation, as much as frequency that the operator has, higher throughputs that he can achieve. So it's important to frequency is a very important asset for every single operator.
You mentioned refarming 1.8 gigahertz used in GSM. In what stage is Claro today? And did you start to work in 700 already?
We had first answered the 1.8. We are doing the refarming. So we are squeeze the frequency for GSM in 1.8. There are regions in Brazil that will have 25 megahertz as a bandwidth in up, in plus 25 megahertz as bandwidth in down. So it's almost 50 megahertz. So in that places we can cope with GSM in 10 megahertz only, and then free 15 megahertz for 4G. And doing carrier aggregation with 2.5, for instance, we can have almost 45 megahertz as a bandwidth, plus 45 megahertz in down and up. So with 45 megahertz, we can achieve, in theoretical, 300 megabits per second. It's a huge amount of spectrum, right? When it comes to 700 megahertz, we have their first city in November last year, and we also did in this cities Rio Verde and Brazil. We did carrier aggregation with 700 megahertz, with 1.8 megahertz and 2.5 gigahertz. Claro was the first operator in Brazil doing 3 carrier aggregations and 700, 1.8 to 2.5. We achieve in average 208 megabits per second there, and it's still commercial network there. So as we are looking to get the second phase of LTE Advanced, that is called the LTE Advanced Pro, reaching 500 megabits per second with the MIMO and with modulation of 256 QAM.
And using the same frequencies band?
Using the same frequency that we have in Brazil.
Just to evolve it and to meet the data increase demand.
Perfect.
So thank you a lot for this interview.
Thank you, Roberta.
I'm Roberta Prescott. Stay tuned at rcrwireless.com.